All right, welcome back to the channel. Demetrius Andrade. Love when I get an opportunity to talk about Demetrius Andrade, and it is not a lot of chances to get to do that. He says that Jermall Charlo is ducking him because he knows he can't beat him. So apparently he's trying to make the Jermall Charlo fight. I don't believe that fight is going to happen, and I don't necessarily believe that it is Jermall Charlo's fault. But let's get into that in this video. All right, welcome back. So the 160-pound division, loved having an opportunity to talk about two of the better fighters in boxing right now. That being one, the WBC 160-pound champion, Jermall Charlo of the Charlo brothers. And the other one is the enigma, Demetrius Boo Boo Andrade, who I do believe, is he trained by by Rozier, or is he trained by his father? But I know he had a relationship with Andre Rozier. I do believe that he's trained by his father, though. The WBO 160-pound champion, former 154-pound champion. He, Demetrius Andrade, is signed with DAZN, and Jermall Charlo is signed with the PBC and fights between Fox and Showtime. I believe his last fight was actually on, Jermall Charlo's last fight was actually on Showtime. He does not quite have the opportunity to make the marquee fights like Jermall Charlo did when he fought on Fox against Tony Harrison. But Jermall Charlo is widely renowned as one of the best middleweights in the world. So is Demetrius Andrade. The problem is, though, that nobody really wants to fight either one of them. None of the guys at 160 pounds is looking for a reason to fight either one of them. The WBC championship is held by Jermall Charlo. The reason that Jermall Charlo got the belt was because Canelo Alvarez skipped town on him when the WBC invented a franchise championship, which would allow them to continue to get sanctioning fees from Canelo Alvarez, but not force Canelo Alvarez to do something that Canelo Alvarez doesn't want to do, apparently, and that is to fight Jermall Charlo. Now, over on the WBO side, you have Demetrius Andrade, who apparently nobody wants to fight either. Demetrius Andrade signed with DAZN and what was expected, I didn't expect it, but at least people were saying it, that because he signed with DAZN, he was going to have an opportunity to fight the other guys at 160 pounds, the guys that held belts at 160 pounds. At the time that Demetrius Andrade signed with DAZN, he was not a world champion. He was going to fight Billy Joe Saunders. What happens? Billy Joe Saunders. I think Billy Joe Saunders tested positive for some nasal spray, and as a result, the fight gets canceled. They never remake the fight. Billy Joe Saunders, because now he can't sniff his nasal weight loss magic, goes up to 168 pounds. So that fight doesn't materialize for Demetrius Andrade. After Demetrius Andrade beats whoever he beat, maybe it was Selecki, I can't recall who he beat to win the vacant WBO 160-pound title. Eddie Hearn was right there in the ring. Now, at the time that happened, Canelo Alvarez held all three of the other major championship belts. He held the WBC, he held the IBF, and he held the WBA. But yet, even though the only belt left was the one that Demetrius Andrade got, no fight was made with Demetrius Andrade. Also, Gennady Golovkin is signed with DAZN. To date, no fight between Gennady Golovkin and Demetrius Andrade. Matter of fact, Demetrius Andrade, it's rumored that Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez are supposed to be fighting their third fight. But there's also a rumor that Canelo Alvarez is supposed to be fighting Callum Smith. And there's Callum Smith. And there's also another rumor that is Billy Joe Saunders. We keep hearing about which fight is finalized and which fight is not finalized for Canelo Alvarez. But we know what is definitely finalized. The Canelo Alvarez ain't fighting Demetrius Andrade, and he's not fighting Jermall-Charlo. So Demetrius Andrade is over there having gone to DAZN, signing with DAZN, with the network that had pretty much a lock on, at the time he signed, had a lock on the 160-pound division, and never got a fight. Has not gotten a top fight. They act like Demetrius Andrade isn't even there until it's time to talk about Jermall-Charlo. Now, Jermall-Charlo is obviously in the same situation, and he can't get those fights with Gennady Golovkin, can't get the fight with Canelo Alvarez. But looking at what Demetrius Andrade says is whether Demetrius Andrade, this is kind of where I do side a little bit with Demetrius Andrade on this. Demetrius Andrade says that the reason that Charlo doesn't want to fight him is because he doesn't think he can win. Now, I've heard that there were offers made there's a lot of stuff going back and forth, maybe about a month and a half, maybe 2 months ago now, where Eddie Hearn claimed that he had made an offer via email to Jermall-Charlo, and the Jermall-Charlo never responded to him. Now, that makes me wonder, number one, just why would Eddie Hearn send an email directly to Jermall-Charlo? You've already made fights between Matchroom and the PBC, and you did it by calling Al Heyman. So I'm not sure whether or not Eddie Hearn is actually serious about it, because if he was serious about it, he could just call Al Heyman up directly. It doesn't seem like that would be too difficult of a thing to do. And it wouldn't matter I don't think it would matter much that those guys have some type of beef with one another. Obviously, because, Eddie Hearn is just always talking bad about the PBC, but he talks bad about everybody that's not Matchroom. So I don't think that's too unusual. But he didn't reach out to Al Heyman. He reached out to Jermall-Charlo himself. Jermall-Charlo was like, man, I don't do that. Leave the message for Al. And if the money's right, we can fight. Now, I don't believe, though, that that's the whole complete story, because of something that Ronnie Shields said. Ronnie Shields was also out not too long ago saying, yeah, Demetrius Andrade, what do you get out of fighting Demetrius Andrade? Well, obviously what you get out of fighting Demetrius Andrade is the WBO championship belt, which though brings me back to something very funny that Keith Thurman said. Man, one thing I do tell you, man, Keith Thurman, who is a former former WBA and WBC welterweight champion, just recently lost. It lost in his last fight to Manny Pacquiao. One thing that I can say about old flute playing Keith Thurman is that the dude is funny, man. And he was like, what did he call the WBO? But he said something about the WBO belt, like, don't nobody want that shit. The WB no. They call it, man, they holding that WB no, like as in no, nobody wants it. And I mean, there's some truth to that matter, because the WBO belt is the most tainted, in my opinion, it's the most tainted of all the belts, man. But I don't necessarily know if that's why Jermall-Charlo wouldn't want to do it, because of the WBO belt. More than likely, and there has been conversations about the PBC not acknowledging the WBO anymore. I had never actually heard anybody from the PBC actually say that they weren't going to acknowledge the WBO. I've heard that was rumored, and I've heard the rumor. I also did notice that on some of the graphics that were used in fights on, it was either Showtime or Fox, that they did not include the WBO champion in their list of champions. That could have been an oversight. It could have been a oversight mistake, or a purposeful oversight mistake, similar to when ESPN gives Vasily Lomachenko's record is 14-0, right? I think they might have moved it to 14-0-1, like moved the loss over to a draw. But whatever they did, man, I've heard that with the WBO, but more than likely the reason that Jermall-Charlo or that Ronnie Shields would say that is because, hey man, Demetrius Andrade is a shifty, awkward southpaw. Also, there's not going to be a lot of money in the fight, unless that is DAZN just decides to just really, really pay through the nose for the fight. I don't think that they would do that. because my understanding is that they said sometime last year that they are going to be looking more carefully at the money that they spend on these big fights. I mean, on fights that they don't consider to be big fights. When they said that, the first guy that I thought about was Demetrius Andrade and Tevin Farmer, because Tevin Farmer was fighting like every other week, getting them checks out of the zone. I knew eventually those guys were going to have to pump the brakes on that. But, all in all, man, I do not see Demetrius Andrade versus Jermall-Charlo happening. I don't necessarily believe it's because Jermall-Charlo doesn't think he can win, but I do put a little bit of it on the PBC and on Jermall-Charlo and Ronnie Shields, because, I mean, when Ronnie Shields says, what do you get out of that? Ronnie Shields, my understanding, is very close to Al Heyman, or is one of the guys that is closer to Al Heyman than most. So the fact that he would say that, it sounds like something that upper level cats at the PBC might be thinking about Demetrius Andrade. Also, Demetrius Andrade is notoriously flaky, pulled out on a Charlo when he was supposed to fight Jermall-Charlo. So, it is what it is. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section about this. Who do you think would actually win the fight? I would have Jermall-Charlo winning that fight by a close decision. But man, Demetrius Andrade is a good fighter and very, very awkward, very, very skilled. So it could go either way. Anyway, it is what it is. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out.